Okay, so Cynthia, you were sharing about a Mandela effect that you just noticed,
Yes.
but it happened 7 years ago, and you were sharing like, how do you know? How do you
Yes,
know?
I know. And I said we should record this. I actually should do a video about it, but I'm still figuring out how to bring this forth because I think I might want to do a survey to find out people who've read my books if they remember this. But yeah, how do I know that something changed 7 years ago that I now noticed? This is classic Mandela effect in action. And in this case, it relates to a book that I wrote. And so what happened is this last week, a couple of authors wrote to me just separately. And in both cases, it reminded me of a passage that I used to have in my book. I didn't remove it, but it's not there now. And I wanted to quote it. I wanted to just grab that text and send it to the author and say, this reminds me of something that I put in my book, or Advantage. I'm sure it was Or Advantage, although now I've checked all my books and it's not in any of them. Okay, what was it? Okay, it's something I used, and how do I know it changed 7 years ago? What happened 7 years ago, roughly, give or take, and I'm not sure. Mandela effect is like that kind of a pop quiz, and now I'm wondering, when did I stop receiving those weird emails from people who were so upset and agitated about something I'd written in Or Advantage? And it was always the same one thing. So if people are upset about something, I knew what it was.
Yeah,
Like,
it was the same
oh,
thing.
that, yeah, okay, like, okay, I know what you're upset about. And what they were upset about, they were vegetarians often or vegans, and they were upset because I was talking about how my salad had talked to me before I ate it. And they're like, the whole thing was just freaky for them. It's like, your salad talked to you. Like, that's very troubling. You're saying plants are conscious. I said, yes, I actually think they are. And yes, I think it was talking to me. And anyway, but the emails stopped. I stopped getting these very agitated emails from people who were deeply troubled by this inclusion of this information. It's not in Or Advantage. At least
So it's not there anymore.
no, it's not there, but it used to be. And the reason I'm tracking, then I asked myself, when did I stop getting those emails? About 7 years ago, more or less. I'd guess about there. Feels like 2015, right around there is when they stopped. Maybe before, maybe, I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. And I haven't looked yet to see where are those emails. I've changed my email service and I can't keep all my emails.
Oh, right.
I've started doing a much better job archiving everything that comes in, but I didn't used to do that. And it takes a lot of time. And then when I go through, like my Gmail fills up, I go to another one, but people can always contact me at cynthia@realityshifters.com. So it sends the email there, but then is it sitting? Where do I save it? And these are strange things anyway. It's been a long time. Might've been 10 years ago. Anyway, it's a big change. And it's not in that passage is not in any of my books. I did not make up the fact that I was surprised when they started emailing me, like, why did that bother them? Like, you're a vegetarian, don't you care about consciousness of life forms? They do, but they hadn't thought about plant consciousness at that time.
It's so interesting that it's a book that you wrote.
Right.
You know it was there.
Yeah, this has happened to me before. It has happened to me before. In fact, this article I was telling you about, this one that was published in Vice Motherboard, they actually quote something, or I say something that's no longer in my book, Quantum Jumps. And it's the whole reason that the cover design is the way it is. And the passage which would explain it is now, I haven't looked recently, but it went missing from Quantum Jumps right before the 2019 conference. And so what is that? Let's see. Yeah, it's where, and I had to recreate it because it's gone. It's not in the book, but I know what it used to say. And basically, I was including the idea. I have to find where it says it. It's a good article. This is an article written in Motherboard. The title is CERN Causing Collective Mass Delusion by Creating Portals to Alternate Dimensions and Investigation. The author is Jason Koebler, Koebler. And so, yeah, now I can't find it now, but I was basically talking about how I was quoting the physicists like, Leonard Susskind, I forget which ones. I don't think he said it. It was Raphael Busso. I know he was one that had said it, that the many worlds of quantum physics are one and the same as the multiverse. That's the quote. And I can't even find it in this article. I know it's in here. It's just a really good article and it's long. So it's in there somewhere. I say it better in the article, but it was in Quantum Jumps. So that's 2 times now that my books have changed. One, Quantum Jumps, where it used to explain what the cover was about and why it shows someone jumping through a wormhole. Now, or Advantage is apparently changed 7 to maybe 10, as long as 10 years ago. Don't know for sure, but I know it changed because it used to talk about communicating with my salad and hearing it telepathically talk to me. There's no trace of that now, and that's a good thing, I suppose, because it was really upsetting people. And I don't even know how to do a survey to find out about both of these. Because like, when did Quantum Jumps change? That would be between 2013 and 2019. Or Advantage changed between publication date, not sure what that was now, and gosh, 7-10 years ago.
That would be so interesting. Like maybe a place like Powell's Books, where they'll have things that are out of print and things that were printed a long time ago with like maybe the most recent reprint or new. So it'd be interesting if you could pull the old one and the new one, and if there would be a way to see if they're different. But if they changed, if we're in a different timeline, it would have never been there in the first place.
Yeah,
so that's the confusing part.
When I check it, I check my original documents, the documents that created the books to begin with. So I'm going to and those don't have those passages. It's like gone. So for me to go bookstore to bookstore, it's like, well, I could do that, but my own author's copy, the originals where it all came from, it's gone there. And I know that's impossible, especially for this or Advantage one, because I was getting so much email from so many people. Well, not that many, but a handful, maybe a dozen. It would happen routinely though. Like there'd be at least one a year, and then it just sort of all petered out and then stopped. And I didn't think to check until this last week when authors, for some various reasons, reminded me of that passage. And I thought, well, this is interesting. I cover a bit of that. And like, oh, I don't. It's not in there.
It's really mind-boggling. I mean, it's really so strange. And yet, especially people like you and I who are aware of it, we know that we've taken a left turn 3 times a day, right? A left and a right and a right and a left. And then by the end of the day, you've changed 4 timelines,
Right.
So it almost makes sense that there would be these things that just never existed that did exist. Imagine how many timelines you've shifted from 10 years ago.
And it's not just me. I'm pretty sure that we're in this together. So I know that there are those viewpoints, the philosophical perspectives where it's kind of like, I am the center of everything and we are all as one and blah, blah. And that's okay. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with oneness consciousness. I love it. But I actually feel more accurately, there is that oneness consciousness, which is the true substrate beneath all time space that we know, and space-time. And what that is pure consciousness, sure. But within that, there are conscious agents, I'm sure of it. And that means all of us. That means it's not just me changing my own books, or maybe it is. People could say, well, you care about your readers, you don't like them getting upset. Sure, that's true. You're hoping they could figure it out on their own, that plants have consciousness. Yeah, that's true. But I never thought, I wish I hadn't written that. However, some readers might have thought that.
Yeah.
They might think, I love this book, I just wish that wasn't in there. Their wish is granted. It's not in there. And I do believe we do co-create reality. We are conscious agents. We do work together. We're capable of it. I know people can point and say, like, well, we're fighting each other too. But I believe, of course, in an optimistic, how good can it get future, where it can be, how good can it get for each and every one of us and all of us together. And that's what I'm aiming for. So when I see these changes to the book, like Quantum Jumps changed right when I went into that conference. And it didn't shake my confidence completely, because I'm writing about this very topic. And so I can say to that audience, before I came in here, I was going to quote something from the book that's not in there right now. And it would have explained the cover, which it used to do, but now it doesn't. So now it's up to me. Why did I put this cover on the book? What is it? It's basically like a wormhole. It's basically showing that this is how the many worlds of quantum physics, the many worlds interpretation that Hugh Everett III came up with, is and can be one and the same as this, this cosmic multiverse, where we've got physicists talking about that possibility. What if there's that connection? And when you go under space-time and you start seeing things, like the amplituhedron and the new mathematics that'll probably shape the future of physics as we know it, because space-time basically is dead. That looks true to me, because you've got quantum physics. It doesn't really explain everything. You've got cosmological physics, relativity, but can you put them together? It's, there's a problem, and it's quantum gravitation seems to be the key. But if you go deeper and you look at like, okay, let's look at all of the consciousness, then you're getting somewhere.
Yeah, and we were talking off camera about the Large Hadron Collider at CERN,
Right.
and its effect on Mandela effect, which that would be one thing. My curiosity is, I'm curious about what you think about these massive solar flares that we're having and the effect they have on the planet. It would seem like that amount of electromagnetic or electrostatic or whatever kind of energy would create a massive shift in time every time it happens. I'm obviously not a scientist, but what do you think about that, about the effect of the solar flares or EMP that might be happening?
Right. Well, there's definitely a lot of feedback systems within the substrate that is consciousness that runs the whole show. And it looks like part of it is these routine patterns that keep happening, cycles that the ancient indigenous people knew about. And these solar patterns and solar cycles are definitely part of it, as well as just the way the earth is moving through the cosmos. We're going through the cosmic fluff and so forth. And people are saying that what's happening now hasn't happened in tens of thousands of years. And yes, and then it matches things like the Kali Yuga and so forth, and the Mayan calendar. And then all of this starts making sense in a very right brain way. Left brain would be very rational and analytical and looking at like, we must measure this. And you can measure it, but when you start getting into this sort of a right brain intuitive way of thinking, then you recognize that there's cause and effect are entangled, that you can't really tease it apart. And that what we think we're doing as causal agents, maybe we are doing that, but maybe we're part of it too. And that's okay. That's a good thing. We are part of it. We're part of the substrate of the fuller consciousness. There are levels to this, and some of them we're not fully conscious aware of, but we can help one another. And when we do that, I have experienced that there's this rush of energy that comes through, and things do work out despite how they look. And you can recognize you're bigger than any situation. These are things too, and thank goodness for your work with Cognomovement, because that's what you guys are doing all the time, reminding people of this.
Yeah, and finding ways. We know we're shifting our own timelines
Right.
all the time in little ways and in big ways, but we also know that changes the collective. It makes that available to a larger group. I don't remember where I first heard this, but that when you make a change in yourself, you affect up to at least 1,000 people. Do you remember hearing this somewhere?
It feels familiar vaguely. And it reminds me of books like The Tipping Point, where they're talking about just the way these cycles go in general, that you kind of get to like a tipping point, like the 100th monkey syndrome. These ideas, they're anchored in various studies, but
I wonder if it's Lynn McTaggart and the Power of 8.
It could be.
Could be, or maybe she repeats that. But we notice that once we make a change within ourselves, that now becomes available. And so many people that we've run into now have just made that change as well, been able to shift that timeline.
And I'm noticing it with people asking how good can it get? They're telling me, Cynthia, that the question has changed my life. I just say it to my family, or I don't even say it, I think it. And it's like, it's catching hold, and it's like solving problems that seemed insoluble. So that's very powerful.
So years ago, I heard in the Law of One material, which is in some ways very difficult to understand, but a lot of it has resonated with me. And the way I look at anything is, it's not that it's true or not true, real or not real, but does it serve me in understanding something greater than I could understand before? So that kind of helped me think about some things. And they talk about in that some of us arrive on the planet simply capable structurally of receiving information and creating changes. Like, the way I think about it in my mind is we're almost a little more pliable in our hold on reality without being, schizophrenic or having a mental issue. And physically, we can kind of navigate the change.
I think a lot of the kids that were being born at this time
Yeah.
exhibit those qualities as well. The crystal kids, indigo kids.
Yeah.
These are just generic terms that people may or may not resonate with, but then you can see it in just neurodiversity of the kids that were born
Right.
ever since the late 80s. It's like that's when it just this huge wave came in, and they're here perfectly at the right time, right place, right time for this. So it's beautiful timing.
Yeah. And then even many before that where
we were front runners. I think you and I, we're neuroflexible, and
right.
we're total front runners.
Right. Well, and the fact that, I mean, there's some of us who feel like, oh my God, I need to work harder. I need to get these messages out. I got to. But in the law of one, they bring forward the idea that some came really just to be a receiver. And by receiving a new download of information or shifting a timeline, even a little one, like you're doing all the time, that you actually now make that new frequency available for the planet. It sort of upgrades the grid just a little bit, a little bit more.
Yes.
So in doing these things, and especially increasing to a little bit better timeline, something that brings more joy,
right,
that shifts that energy up the ladder, something that brings ease or peace or love, right, or bliss, that in doing that, in being it really more than doing, that you actually provide that new availability of that particular frequency. So I really love that. And when I teach my practitioners and actually just our regular students that do the change, do the thing, get rid of that old pattern, delete it, and upgrade to a new one, not only for you for sure,
right,
but in knowing that you now make that available.
Right.
So I don't know.
Such a big
really
idea.
love that idea.
Yeah, it fits with family constellation therapy too, because they work with similar principles, and that's so true. And that's another out there kind of therapy, but I love it. And it seems very effective.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I have a new analogy. So we use kefir grains in our house. And if you don't know what kefir is, it's a bacteria that's been used all the way back into ancient times. In fact, I've heard that no one actually knows where it really came from.
Is it similar to yogurt? I've wondered because I see it like when I was living in Switzerland, they had kefir, but they'd have like kefir drinks, they'd have yogurt drinks, and they seem like on the same shelf, like they're right there together, like similar.
Kefir grains are a little bit different. They're way more powerful. So regular yogurt generally has about 12 strains of bacteria.
Okay.
Kefir grains would provide 42 to 70.
Ooh.
Yeah, of this wide range. And so people in Turkey and Russia, there was a war between Turkey and Russia, fought over kefir grains. There was a kidnapping of a princess.
Oh my gosh.
Because somebody had lost the kefir grains or they died or something, and one wouldn't share with the other, so they kidnapped a princess over it. Anyway, it's an old story about kefir, but it's so powerful in creating these hardy people.
And now we're finding exactly, because the GI tract is so much to do with the immune system, and now we know how important that is.
Yeah, and so there's books like Donna Gates and Donna Schwenk have written books. Okay. Donna Gates's Body Ecology, and I can't remember Donna Schwenk's. It's really a much more readable version of Donna Gates. Anyway, they talk about how if you can change the culture of the body, you create a much more healthy set of defenses against.
So you've had good experience with the kefir then?
Yeah.
And you make your own?
Yeah. So the kefir grains, you make your own. And it's a really kind of an interesting thing. Because what I bought them online, and it's this little tiny packet of these weird looking little rice things. In fact, they kind of feel like cooked rice if you touch them. But you put that little bit in milk, and you can do it in coconut water, and you can do it in, vegan things as well. But it's a culture, and it actually will cultivate or culturize. I don't think that's a word, but the milk. And you end up with this thin regular milk turns into this thick, like a cream, like yogurt, tastes like yogurt. And you can do all kinds of things with it. But my most recent analogy is, in our work, and I know in yours this is true too, when one person in a family changes themselves dramatically enough where their automated responses are now different, they really are a different human. in terms of their neurological setup after this kind of a change,
Yes.
that they actually changed the culture of the family.
Yes.
Like introducing Kefir, right? The wavelength is different. We all kind of in a family, in a home, we vibrate together. We have a culture.
Yes.
We all know this. And when one person creates that change, it changes the culture.
I love that analogy too, with all of the different strains. Like you said,
Yeah.
Kefir has so many, and some of us feel like we get a lot of downloads, especially recently, those of us who are receivers. So receiving all these downloads and knowing like you're bringing this culture in, and it's good because you're meditating and
Yeah.
you're in that high vibe state. So this is very reassuring to people who right now might feel like they're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Yeah. For anybody who's listening who does, just like you're saying, where all of a sudden something's changed and you now see the world in a new way.
Right.
There are literally things you can see now that you couldn't see 5 minutes before. That's that up leveling of awareness, of consciousness, of availability.
Right.
I know Bill and I were talking about this today with someone, like the idea of consciousness. Some people don't get it, what that means, and they think it's this big woo-woo idea, but
Yeah.
realistically, it's just your awareness of where you are now, what you have in terms of availability, what's available to you now that wasn't before. That's that consciousness leveling upward. And so really, if you come up with this brand new idea and you see the world in a new way, and you just allow it to be within yourself, you don't fight with it, you just allow, you literally have brought that to the planet and provide it to the grid. And then if you share it with someone, a friend,
yes,
write about it, blog about it, think about it even more, you kind of add to that culture.
I had an experience with this just last week too. Now, it's funny. This always happens when we talk. It's like, I'm glad we're recording it too. Yeah, this is so cool because I just don't want, I don't mean to interrupt, but I love what you're saying. And I was watching a video created by Kingsley Dennis. He's a philosopher and an author, and he's got a YouTube channel. Doesn't have many subscribers, but it's excellent. And he did this little Abe channeling that he's reading through, and he's talking about it. And he got this number 88 in it. And I saw this on Saturday. Today is, what day is it? Monday. So it was 3 days ago. Anyway, I was thinking about that, and I didn't leave a comment on his video because I was thinking, this is so interesting. That 88 is significant. And I was feeling it like a question. And then, long story short, Shane Robinson, who's part of International Mandela Effect Conference, he did a video just like the next day after that, like it's Sunday or something. And I just saw it yesterday, but it was all about the fractal frequency of music, fractal music going into 8.8, and how octaves have 8 notes, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Right. And if you play with the fractal quality of it, and he's a musician, so he's got his keyboard right there, and it's worth watching the video. It's the Unbiased and On the Fence channel. He's just going through it, and he sets it up so it starts playing. And he said you can let it kind of create its own tempo, but it goes faster. It goes, brrr. I can't really do it. The fractal quality, it's like fractals, of course, are that field of mathematics where you can look at a Mandelbrot set, for example, the famous example of the fractal. And on the periphery of the image, you'll see all these little, like a big circle thing has all these little circles on the edges. You zoom in and the little circle looks just like the big circle with all the little things on it, and it goes forever. That's fractal. And it's powerful when you put it into music, as Shane was just demonstrating, because he created this beautiful trance meditation music, and it just takes you boom into this higher level.
Wow.
So if people want to feel like, what does that feel like? That's a really cool, fast way to see. Like, this is one way. Music is a good avenue, a good channel, a good method. But the thing that was so striking to me is here you've got Kingsley Dennis talking about 8.8 and like, what is this? And people in the comments are like, what is that? And then you've got Shane. Here I've got this 8.8 fractal music. Here it is, like instant. And so that's what's happening these days. Like, one person can be thinking something and it's just like right there, because we are all pulling together. We're ready for this golden age, this dynamic changing evolutionary moment where all of us that are conscious way showers, we're stepping into this. And even if you don't know what you're doing, being is enough.
Absolutely. I mean, it becomes available on the planet so fast. And we've seen in our work these amazing miracles happen. I had something happen in my office recently that really should not have been possible. And yet was not only possible, it was probable in the moment. Like, okay, yeah, let's fix this. Like, let's make this happen. And I just keep saying it's more and more available. It's just right there now where it wasn't available before, maybe on some periphery, maybe with some real work, maybe beginner's luck, something like that. But now it's like, boom, yep, that's available now. We can do that, no problem. And things just shift so rapidly. And it does seem like, especially in the consciousness awareness field, we all tend to get the download at the same time. Right. We all tend to be thinking and about very similar things, but saying it a little differently all at the same time. So to me, what's available on the planet is pretty fascinating.
It is so fascinating. And that article coming out, I was so impressed. I think we started recording after we talked about it a bit, but I just want to credit this amazing work of the author, Jason Kubler, because he's talking about CERN and the Large Hadron Collider. And you might think, oh, it's a conspiracy theory jab, but it's not. It's really thoughtful and it's comprehensive and really taking a look at science and research that's happening at University of Chicago, where they're showing Mandela effect appears to be real. So people are so-called misremembering. Maybe it's more than that. Maybe it's like what you're talking about with Cognomovement, and we can more easily and facilitate that we've never had access to before, be able to grab onto these miraculous moments, and what had seemed highly unlikely becomes possible, probable, and boom, it's happening, and it's what is.
Yeah, it's just what is. It's what's available now, like as though it had always been.
Right.
I saw one of these things recently. There's a channel I've been watching lately. It's called Mind Unveiled. And I can't say that I endorse everything they say, because I just started listening to it, and I did hear a few things that maybe I'm not sure that I agree with, but they talk about a theory called Tartaria. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
And about a gap in time, a chronological time, and that kind of thing. And he had one topic on his channel, and he was talking about glasses, a kind of glass, a lens that was created with, I think it's called dicyanine, which is now strangely illegal in the US. And it was, this person created a kind of a lens, and he was trying to see auras. He was trying to prove the electromagnetic field around a person that we would refer to as an aura. We refer to it as a field of potential. There's many other names for it, but this field around you. And with this lens, yes, you could see the aura, but you could also see everything else that's right here. Now, this happened.
Now, wait a minute. That was too juicy. What do you mean? Like elves, more. Fairies, like unicorns?
Yes.
Yeah, like the stuff that I can see because my DMT is super hyperactive. So like when an elf runs through the room, I'm like, hi, or I'll see, like lately, this last week, I've been talking to the original owner of this house, and he doesn't talk much, but he loves the garden. And so he'll just, like, I'll stand in the garden, I'll feel him standing next to me, and I'll look at him. And anyway, like that, it'll show that.
Yeah.
Like someone will be like, oh, you're standing next to the gardener that lived in your house. Like, yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so there's some of us who have different levels of the ability to see these things anyway. And people used to think we were crazy. Now they're more likely to understand.
I would love to have that available so people could see it.
Yeah. Okay. So dicyanine was the name. It comes from coal tar. It's made from coal tar. In the video, if you look up Mind Unveiled, you could probably find it. There was a company in Russia that was still making glasses out of it that you could see through, but it's something that's been banned here.
Interesting that it's banned. I don't understand that.
Of course. So obviously, it opened up where you could literally see, because you're looking in a different spectrum, a different light spectrum. So the video goes on to talk about in the Vietnam War, military was messing around with different kinds of night vision. Right. And they created a night vision that you could see. It was a red vision, and so I don't know that I understand exactly. You would probably understand more than I do, but one is you're seeing
Like infrared
photons and
is what you're talking
neutrons.
about.
Huh?
Infrared, kind of like the night goggle
Yeah.
technology, infrared. So
So
you're
I'm
seeing
having,
into like usually our visible spectrum goes from red to violet. And infrared means little below what we normally see. They use that to see, it's like heat sensing. So you can
yeah.
see infrared and then you're seeing like there's an animal in the woods and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so this was a red screen, but they weren't exactly referring to infrared. But you know how so night vision, if anyone's ever seen them, if you haven't, it's very cool.
Yes.
If you get a hold of a
Super cool.
third generation night vision, what is going on in our sky is not what you think. It's so much fun. There's a guy, if you ever go to Sedona, his name's Michael of Sedona, and he does these tours, and he has them third gen night vision, and
That's so
you know,
cool.
he kind of decodes what you're looking at. It's pretty cool. But during the Vietnam War, this man is talking about that his dad was you know, a captain, and he led a platoon, and they had these new night vision. And all of a sudden, the soldiers were starting to go crazy. The gunners would have the night vision on, and they're in a helicopter, and they start shooting wildly, saying that they are seeing large winged creatures alongside the helicopters.
Like
And they're,
dragons
yeah, and they're all seeing the
or
same.
dinosaurs. I wonder what they were seeing.
Who knows what? They called them demons.
Oh
Because of
dear.
course they were terrified, and they looked red because this was a red vision. Well, so it kind of makes sense. Like so many people from Vietnam came back with so much PTSD, different than the wars before. That would kind of be one reason why, a possibility of that, of what they were actually looking at. But they were again seeing beyond the veil.
Right.
Now, whatever they were seeing wasn't attacking them clearly.
Oh.
It was just flying along next to them. And so this particular platoon captain, they had told the captains not to wear them, not to put them on, but the platoon would. So he immediately saw the reaction and had everybody get rid of them immediately. And he was then had a commendation for being so smart in the field. So at that point, they knew they could not use that
Right.
particular lens, particular technology. It's more than that. They had something to do with whether or not you're seeing electrons or photons, which again, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know for sure. You'd have to listen to it. So they then switched to what is now a green, the green, and they don't tend to see
Things that aren't there or supposedly
yeah.
aren't there.
But what I have heard is there are military grade night vision that are illegal for us to have, you know, above that Gen 3. And I thought, what in the world? Why in the world would there be anything wrong with us having stronger and stronger night vision? They're terribly expensive. If you could afford it, what would be wrong with that? Well, if what you're actually seeing is beyond the veil,
Like ETs.
everything.
Everything. Yeah,
Everything.
I want to show you a picture. I was telling you about my gardener. This is, can you see it without the reflection? There we go. Yeah, that is, you're looking at an old original faucet handle in the laundry room. What happened is I cleaned it off, and I can see it's brass. It's significant. I didn't take a before picture. The original owner of my home was a gardener, and he would just come into that room and clean up. And he wanted me to know, like, you do know that handle, he knows I love brass on handles. It's anti, you know, it's good for your immune system because it kills germs. If all your doorknobs are brass, then you're staying clean. It's just a little bit better because it has that natural effect. And he just wanted to show me, because he saw me replace everything else in the house with brass. And he's like, look at this. I didn't mess with this old funky laundry room tub, but sure enough, I just found that out yesterday. So I was cleaning it. So I'm talking to him regularly, but you know, and it's nice talking, I mean, quotes, I can hear what he's thinking.
Yeah.
So it's like my salad talking to me, or the original owner talking to me. Is he dead? Yes, he's dead.
Yeah.
But he's brilliant. Anyway, yes.
So actually, that's why I brought up this this night vision and the Dyson in the first place. Is all of a sudden in my world, and now in yours, that's something that has existed on this planet, that was available, and it always makes me wonder.
That sounds like a Mandela effect.
Did that really exist? And if it did, why have we never heard of this?
Why have we not heard of it?
But
yeah,
it's almost
exactly.
like now that has always been available.
I love it.
And I want to say one more thing, to wrap back around to the plants. That's something that's hugely available now to people hearing and talking to plants. And SciTech Labs out of San Diego, actually, I think I shared this with you last time when we talked. They've done a study on it with a person who was talking about that she had a master healer plant that was a master healer, and that if you recorded the sounds and people heard it, they healed.
Yes.
And he said it didn't turn out to be a modality that went anywhere, but they proved that it was factual.
Yes.
So I was at lunch with my daughter the other day, and we went to a restaurant that's been there a while, but a new restaurant just took over. And they've grown these trumpet vines up the outside of like what looks like a cage. It's kind of ugly from the outside, but sitting in it's this lovely garden area. So I'm seated next to one of these big potted plants, and it's been in the hundreds here. It's really hot. And the plant, I'm a gardener too, so I notice immediately that this plant is wilted.
Oh, it needs water.
It's 1 p.m, but it's really wilted.
You shared some.
And it is I'm starting to panic. I can feel the panic of the plant, like literally the panic of the plant.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, what do you need? And it said 4 gallons of water. Now it's a really big pot.
Right.
And I'd had an experience just the day before that helped me understand the actual need. So I have all kinds of potted plants. I sculpt topiaries at my house.
Yes.
And so I had this pot and it had become overgrown with everything. So I took everything out of it and I was going to put a different topiary in it. And I thought I had been soaking my pots. Well, when I took the things out, I realized this pot was only wet this far down, and I thought I had soaked it.
Oh.
So all this information gathered together in this pot, and
it was beyond just a synchronicity.
Yeah.
It's a meaningful coincidence.
Yeah.
It's like super, super.
So what it showed me is that the energy is not just hot. It's a little above average here, but the intensity of the heat is something else. Right. We've all been feeling the intensity of this stuff, So I'm having to water my pots twice a day, which I've never had to do. Once a day, every other day, and on days when it's over 100 every day. But I mean, my pots are needing watered so much more. So I realized there was an intensity, a change.
Yes.
And these people were newly taking care of these plants, right?
So they didn't know what you know.
Yeah. So the poor little waitress comes out, and I said something about the food was great. And I said, could I offer just a little unsolicited advice? And she goes, yeah, sure. And I said, you see this plant, and there was one together, and you see how it's wilted. And she said, yeah. And I said, it's going into shock. And by the end of the day, you'll probably have lost this plant. She goes, yeah, I know. We've been having the hardest time. And the new owners were thinking about taking all these plants out.
No. Oh my God, no.
Yeah, all these plants out and replanted with things that are easier. And I said, okay, first of all, you don't need to do that. And I have a feeling that's probably why this plant was like, hello, excuse me. Can you help me?
They knew how dire the situation was. Now that reminds me of Secret Life of Plants, where like someone who'd killed a plant killer enters the room and the plants would go into shock, measured by the devices that Cleve Baxter was using. Go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
So I could, and the plant's telling me, exactly what it needed. I mean, 4 gallons is a pretty random,
right?
Like, why wasn't it 3 or 2 or 1? So I explained to the girl about the plant
and your background, that you're an expert in.
Yeah. And I told her, look at the plant and see that the water has to go all the way through this massive amount of vines.
It's huge.
So kind of think about how much water that would actually take if you had to squeeze it through all those vines. It's a huge amount.
Yes.
And I said, these particular ones, they want 4 gallons a day when it's this hot.
Right.
In the fall or the spring, you wouldn't do that, but it needs that. And tell them to go get this particular kind of fertilizer at this particular store.
Good.
And they'll be happy. They'll be just fine. She's like, okay, I'll tell them. I'm like, however, you need to at least go get 2 full pitchers
right now.
Do it now.
Yeah, the thing's, it's in shock.
Or this plant it's starting to go into shock.
Thank goodness you were there. What a blessing.
We
Oh
came
my
back
gosh.
2 days later, and the plant is absolutely thriving. It's absolutely beautiful. But, I mean, my daughter's there with me and she knows what's going on. And of course, she's a little embarrassed that I'm telling people about their plants. But these plants were, for lack of a better word, screaming, please help us. They're really struggling. And so,
This fits with everything we're talking about
yeah,
today. Just
exactly.
listening deeply. And even if you don't have those glasses that show you, trust that intuition. Because I think a lot of people are getting these insights, and it's easy to think like, what am I, like, this is ridiculous. And what you and I are basically suggesting is listen, maybe there's something that's happening that's reaching out. Thank goodness you could hear it.
Even if it feels like you're making it up,
Right.
even
Exactly.
if it feels, and I didn't have to act weird or say, I can hear your plant. I just
Right.
said, you know what? I just learned this myself, that these plants right now are needing so much more than you would ever anticipate. And I told her about my own pot and why they would want to put that large amount and why they need the fertilizer, because that large amount of water is going to wash the nutrition through, that kind of thing. So just as a gardener, I gave my advice. I didn't have to say,
Right.
this plant is screaming right now. Can you please?
And this relates to human health too. And I think I know how to talk for YouTube and all. I just want to put something out. Our bodies right now, what I'm hearing is a lot of people are short on glutathione. And there's been a regulation, I guess, of NAC, but that's one of the ingredients that helps your body make its own glutathione. Apparently people are really, really short on it, just in general.
Glutathione.
Glutathione. And so some people take the glutathione as a supplement, but what's really recommended is taking NAC with glycine, because that helps your body create its own glutathione. And once again, this comes from the longevity aisle of our supplement store. So it's helping your body create what it needs at a time when, for various reasons that we're not going to get into, things are happening on the planet. Anyway, yeah, so you might want to make sure you've got glutathione in your body. That would be, I recommend NAC and glycine to help.
Well, I think that's even part of a bigger conversation. So
Yeah.
I kind of thought about this, it's how funny how we're on the same wavelength so often,
Yep.
that if this intensity of energy
Right.
is affecting plants in that way. So my plants this year, the kind of fertilizer I buy, that guy at our local store he created it himself, had it created at a lab and whatever they do. And normally it's once a month on potted plants, and they need it about every 2.5 weeks. They're needing way, way more nutrition and more water. And it made me think, we're like plants too. We're experiencing this intensity of energy. And do we need something different in our nutrients? Do we need more nutrients?
Yeah, we do.
Do we need more water? And that one would make sense to me, water and like trace minerals.
And this gets into medicine and also soil management, both, because it's working with just this idea of terrain theory, where you'd like to, like if you compost, that's perfect. Then you can supply what some of your plants needs on your property with the compost. Just don't throw food waste and things away if it's perfectly good, if it's organic, if it's something that can be turned, rotated, and put back into enriching the soil. It's very important. And with our own bodies, we need to think that way too. So it's a really great opportunity during these times and to help each other. Like if you know something, I like the way you brought that up with the waitress. So you're not being obnoxious.
Well, I'm a big believer that if we don't have permission, we don't have permission.
Exactly.
We don't have permission to go around healing people that haven't asked. We can wish the best for them at their best outcome, but we don't have permission. So I will ask, would you be willing to receive some unsolicited advice?
Yeah.
And I do it so sparingly.
Right.
But in this case, I knew it helped their business. I knew it saved them money. And the solution was so simple. And they were really, really grateful. When we went back the next couple of days, the little waitress said, "Oh, you're the one with the plants. I just wanted you to know." They were so appreciative of that information.
It makes such a difference for everybody that comes there.
Right.
Then they've got the plants change the whole atmosphere and improve it so much, especially in the heat. I mean, it's just so nice to have the plants there, you know?
Right. And they were good, healthy plants. They just needed to be known how to care for. But it really did make me think about this intensity of energy. And I like to think of things in electricity because I know myself, I have a weird electrical system and I have to wear a salt rock on my body at almost all times
Mm.
to be able to manage the intensity of the heat. Otherwise, I end up very dehydrated very quickly. And I use trace minerals. And I also
So what kind of salt rock are you wearing?
Himalayan salt rock. So
Okay.
I don't have the one here in my room right this second, but I use a heart-shaped one. And for girls, it's easy to just stick in your bra.
Yeah.
That's what I do in it. And it's close to my ticker, which is my electricity generator.
Good.
Because I tend to interfere with, electronics and stuff like that. But I noticed that as we have these solar flares and there's a lot of electricity
Right.
in there, a lot of intensity, that for me, that helps me regulate my own energy, have enough energy and kind of equalize it out. And more people that I work with, I find they have the same issue. They're talking about, visual and aural migraines.
Right.
For me and a lot of people that I work with, man, having that salt rock on your body eliminates that. It keeps that crazy static out of your head and makes it more useful.
That's so good to know.
Yeah. And so, more and more people that I work with, young people even, I keep them in my office and a lot of times they end up taking it home and they'll come back and say, I can't tell you how much this has helped me. They notice a big difference. So I really think there's something about our energy maintenance.
Yes.
And the intensity of the energy right now that we need to be maybe a little more aware of.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe higher quality nutrients, maybe better water, like little things, or salt, little things that you can make the adjustment.
I think I mentioned before, when I drink water, I put Himalayan salt in it. It's you've got the electrolytes, and then I also breathe. Spirit told me bring all this stuff. I'm like, again, but yeah, this is that Himalayan salt inhaler. And this, if I've got a cough or allergies, it's fantastic, and it helped clear damage from the lungs related to various illnesses, which we're not going to talk about.
Which shall remain nameless. I have to tell you a story about that, Cynthia. I bought one of those. Yes. Mine was purple. And I had it on the counter. And I am not afraid of bugs. I'm not afraid of spiders. I cohabitate quite well with them, except for earwigs. Earwigs, and it's a no. So this is where what you focus on expands, everyone. Yes. So I had that salt inhaler and I had it on my counter and it became earwig season here and they were in my house and really starting to make me crazy. So one day the salt thing was on my counter so I would remember to use it. So I pick it up and realize there's an earwig on it. So I, drop it down. And then I pick it up again and there's another, drop it and put it down. Well, so then I unplug it and it has salt inside, you guys, and these holes on the bottom. And so when you breathe through, you breathe around the salt and you inhale. Yeah. So Cynthia.
Yes.
Those holes of mine were full of earwigs.
You are kidding me.
And so
how is that even possible?
I don't know. I open it and I dump
this.
I open it and dump the salt thinking, are they hiding? Because they like cool, dark places. Yeah, they're hiding in there. Right. And I shook it out. I didn't see anything. I put everything back in and I put the plug back and I pick it up to use it and earwigs just come out those holes. So I end up screaming. I dropped the salt thing, shattered it, of course.
Oh gosh.
But it's one of those things that it reminded me what I focus on expands.
Sounds
good,
like a horror movie.
bad, or ugly. It was like a horror movie. It was so
forget the birds.
and then think about it. I was breathing earwigs. Like it's my worst nightmare. But very interestingly, I was focused on these earwigs that, are under things all the time and how much I dislike them.
Right.
And then they all showed up. It was like an invitation. To be really careful.
Oh, for sure. That happened with a friend who I was on a walk with her in a local park, and she kept noticing giant snakes, like 6-foot snakes.
Oh my God.
And I told her, I've never seen this in the whole time I've been here. I asked her, are you afraid of snakes? She said, I'm deathly afraid of snakes. It was a magnet, a super magnet.
Oh my gosh. It's so true. My daughter's like that. She's terrified of spiders. Rather than, help a spider outside of her house, she'd rather burn the house down. It's that kind of an issue. And she won't let us help her work on it or anything because she just is terrified. And everywhere she is, there's a spider.
Well, this is a good point. We're talking about this. We can share our personal favorite techniques to clear phobias out. Like Cognomovement, you'll probably talk about that. My go-to, you get a surprise. Good. What I do is just recommend practicing emptying the mind. So if I start going into obsessive negative thoughts about who knows what, that just pick your favorite from the news today and think like, okay, that's not good to focus on. And you might be having trouble getting into how good can it get. Then I like to go straight to clearing the mind, and really practicing it so often that I experience no thoughts. And it's just like clearing your palate before the next course of a good meal. And that way, that's my personal favorite go-to. And it doesn't work instantly. So this is one where you want to practice it. It's not going to be any good in the horror show moment.
In the horror show moment of
whatever
coming out the holes. Oh my God. Well, with us, what we do is we'll take the sensation, that horror feeling, it's so irrational.
Yes.
We take that feeling and we really feel it. And then we work through a series of exercise, moving it through the nervous system and through the brain, changing the automatic pattern, the autonomic nervous system. Is it true that spiders are terrifying? Only if to you they are. Some people will take a look at a tarantula and lean in and be like, ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, knowing not to mess with a black widow, better.
Right.
But there's other people who see that and it immediately turns on their fight or flights, totally irrationally. And it's a problem with my daughter. It's a problem, but she has more spiders than any person I've ever seen in my life. So I told her, you're drawing it in for one, but two, consider for you, is there a message in that spider?
Right.
Is there something about that you need to understand or make peace with? They never bite her.
Mm-hmm.
She's never been bitten by a spider.
That's so good.
But she sees them everywhere. They're not in her life to hurt her. So I think, what you're saying is, let the mind let go of whatever the story is around it,
right,
and really take another look.
Right.
Look a little deeper. So I have to do the same with my earwigs, right?
Yes.
Look a little deeper. I don't have any idea why they affect me the way they do, but it's automatic. They just gross me out. So maybe what I need to do is welcome them. It's the season. They're here for a short time.
They're great in the garden. They're not so good in the house, but I see them in the garden sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I see them everywhere when it's they become the bane of my existence. But the same thing, like I know they're in the corner of my eye. I know they're there. I know there's going to be one. And the same with her and the spiders. So what we focus on expands. We know this.
Yes.
So take a deeper look about why they're there, and maybe it's just that you're focused. So
what's the gift? What's the gift in the earwigs? What are they sharing?
I just at the moment can't think of one, but
I actually kind of love earwigs because I think of them like Salbug's roly-polies, that they're good for helping to create we're talking about soil quality. They're the little soil engineers, and they're helping. Ideally outdoors, not in the house, not in
my salt pipe.
No, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense.
Is that something? So I want to switch gears just a tiny bit because I want to share a UFO sighting.
I almost forgot. That was the whole thing we were going to talk about. Yes. Go for it.
So this is funny. So I kind of, for fun, true or not true, real or not real, for fun, I love to look at the sky, and I imagine that I'm going to walk out the door and see UFO. Something amazing. I've had lots of weird experiences that might be the answer to, but I can't say for sure. Weird experiences. So this is a little too much information, but I have to get up in the night and pee, and I have through my window a space that I can see. And it's exactly the same space that I've been looking at for 23 years. That's how long we've lived in this house. And I could see the night sky. Always keep the window open a bit. So it's 4 a.m. and I'm there and I'm looking out the window. And of course, just seeing if there might be anybody there visiting. And I see this big, what I thought was a star, maybe to start with. At 4 a.m, my head's not so clear. And man, that star is awfully big. And I've been looking out that same patch of sky for 23 years and I've never seen a star there before. Well, then I start to realize that it's way too big and it's only 200-300 feet above the hill. And the hill is just about maybe a 1.5 to 2 miles away from where I am, this hill. And there's this big white shining orb. And it looks like the color inside a prism. If you've ever shined a light through a prism,
Right.
inside, it just is the most brilliant white that sort of looks like all the colors at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's still white before it refracts out of the prism. Well, this is what it looks like. If you could imagine white mercury, it almost looked like that kind of a quality. And it kind of had a rotating or pulsating effect. At the same time, it didn't quite stay a big solid sphere, but kind of morphed and moved. And of course, I'm fascinated and I keep looking and I'm looking through kind of some trees, but there was a space where I could see it very clearly. And I'm looking and fascinated. And in about 45 to 60 seconds, it just went and vanished.
So you didn't get much time. It was just like within a minute or two, it was there, and then
I think it was about a minute. I don't.
Do you feel like it sensed you, like you sensed it?
I have no idea. It's 4 a.m.
Right.
So I think, oh, I just saw a UFO. So I go back to bed. Now, in my normal state, if I'd been thinking at all, I would have run outside to see if there were more because I'm certain that's going to happen one day.
Yeah, but you're pretty tired too.
I don't know. I felt like I was wide awake. I wasn't asleep. That's not the issue at all. But I just went back to bed like it was a regular thing to have happen all the time. But it was really exciting. So it's probably been 5 or 6 days now, and maybe a little more. And I watched the channel. It's Mr. MB333.
I was going to ask about that because he tracks these things.
Yeah. So yesterday I opened a thing and there are 2 people who saw at completely different sides of the states. It says 2,000 miles apart.
I saw that there was a double
That
sighting.
is what I saw.
Was it the same day and the same time? Or
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's not, I should
You should leave a comment on the channel.
I did.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I did. But it is what I saw. And that same quality I was having a hard time describing. It was like, that lighthouse pulsing kind of a sensation.
Yeah.
But inside the white orb of.
On the inside of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then it just faded right out like and gone. But it was really, really beautiful. Really beautiful.
Wow.
Really interesting.
That is super interesting.
Yeah. And then I wanted to tell you about another experience. So this might be a little weird for everyone. But I wanted to ask you about it.
Okay.
I tend to kind of reach out into the universe at night. It's one of my techniques for falling asleep. And I kind of had a little guidance, reach your mind out, reach. And I've had some really interesting experiences. So certainly not asleep, but just in a way, sort of a meditation and heading that direction and getting my mind in a different state, in a different place from my work and all of that, shifting out. And so I wander out and reach all the way out to just, at the edge of our atmosphere, just a little beyond. And I saw what looked like a Dyson sphere around our planet. So here's the interesting thing. If anybody doesn't know what a Dyson sphere is, it's an idea that scientists have that there is equipment, machinery that can be put around a star that actually absorbs, it's like solar panels in very simplistic terms. And that scientists from here believe that some stars have this equipment because the star is dimmed and had been brighter. So I wander out and I run into this Dyson sphere, and instantly, all of a sudden, my mind is somewhere else. I'm like, wait a minute, that was interesting. So I wander back out, and instantly I'm redirected and my mind's on something else. I'm like, wait a minute, I was looking at that. So I try for 3 or 4 nights to get a better look. Finally, I say, okay, obviously I'm not supposed to hang around here, but what is it? A reverse Dyson sphere to protect from this super, super intense energy, heat, the solar flares. Mm-hmm. And, that it's actually ships in a way that are kind of connecting force fields, creating a little bit of a temporary kind of deflection. So obviously, I'm thinking, well, that was an interesting thing to make up. But also, my mind just could not stay there. It would not stay there. So I was going to ask you about this. Have you ever heard of anything like this? And what do you think about the being knocked out of it all the time?
Well, that stuff is familiar to me from the, my past life in the future, some 500 years from now, working with any kind of viewing. To observe, to see is to be seen. And consciousness is fundamental. So other conscious agents can detect. And so I'm presenting some basic framework here. And then if there is such a thing as an artificial general intelligence, it is often capable. It becomes conscious thanks to becoming self-protective. So the Internet of Things, for example, is the beginning of that. And then as we let artificial intelligence train itself, then it's learning how to do that and observe which parts of it is and so forth. So if people are saying, well, poppycock, this can't possibly happen, this is happening. And this is the way that information security of the future will be conducted based on artificial intelligence. Is it possible for that to be able to be aware of other sentient observers? Absolutely. And so this ties in with what you and I were talking about earlier about leveling up and how when we meditate, we access higher levels. It's all a level game. And I'm calling it a game because it is. It's just recognizing if you want to see and be seen and to operate the controls of whatever it may be, you're going to absolutely need to attain a level of higher spirituality, of higher consciousness. And it's necessary to be able to not be deflected away. So it's just a basic protocol of systems that I'm familiar with from 500 years in the future.
Well, it was weird. And I don't know that I've ever quite had that happen before. And I kept thinking, if this is my own imagination, why would my own imagination be kicking me out?
And that's pretty friendly too, by the way. A redirect is friendly.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go into other things, but that's a very friendly approach. It's like if you're a preschool teacher and a child keeps trying to grab the cookie jar, and you just keep redirecting. Like, no, we're not doing cookies right now. Not doing cookies right now. It's very gentle. It's sweet. So I like that. It was it's positive.
Well, once I asked, well, what is it? Like, what's going on here?
Right.
I got the answer. And then it was okay to kind of hang around and look a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was maybe, like you're saying, maybe I really was an intruder onto this. And then I saw some other things. It reminded me of some visions, not visions, but visuals I've seen where they're showing the solar flare or solar mass ejection is what they call.
Right.
And kind of some warnings about that should be hitting the earth in 3 days, and some uncertainty about what might happen when it impacts the earth and a possible EMP type experience. And what happens is it literally goes around the earth like, and I don't know if they were visuals that were animated. It's so hard to tell now. Because if not, there'd have to be a camera somewhere out in the universe looking at the earth. Right. But they also knew from Aurora Borealis and other things, other measurements, that it literally was skirting our atmosphere, which would kind of make sense. It didn't seem like mainstream science was so certain that it wouldn't penetrate our atmosphere and really cause some issues, because that has happened before.
It has happened in the past, and we don't know. This is really interesting about your Dyson sphere. How far out was it? How thick was it? Anything you care to share that you feel safe
Well,
sharing?
okay, so I can just tell you what I saw. So it looked like to me that it's just really on the outside edge of our atmosphere, a little ways beyond the outside edge of our atmosphere, but not far. And kind of not around the whole planet, but kind of circling so that it's always there.
Like an umbrella that's
sun.
just pleasantly in the right place.
Yeah. And so a Dyson sphere is kind of funny. When you see the images of them, it looks like honeycomb type setup.
Like Buckminster Fuller stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So it kind of looked like that, but what I could see was like a little silver, I would imagine a ship, and each having a solar field, what do you call that? Protective field, like a shield.
Force field.
Like a force field. And that kind of met up with all the other ones. It didn't look like it was solid to me, but just like a
cooperative effort.
Yeah, like a general. And so, I dug a little further and asked, what's this about? Well, that it's about us not really being exterminated again, not a global mass extinction again.
Right.
That, we're really at a point of even consciousness.
We can learn from what we've done. We're salvageable.
Well, not only that, it wasn't really that. It was more like, you guys are right there, like reachable, where we can start to actually communicate. You're actually in the realm of reachable to us in terms of consciousness, awareness, and even understanding of technology. We're not quite there, but
we're in range. Yeah,
within range. And that if we're wiped out again, then they have to start over and we have to start over. And we're there at the point of being able to join our galactic family realistically. And so what I got from it is just a general feeling of not having to start over again and getting a little assist that evidently is not really for general knowledge. And then I'm just thinking, maybe I spilled the beans or it could be completely made up. I don't know.
I think it's really good you're sharing this because it feels real to me, and it matches. I get that heart sense from it and the goosebumps from it and the rush of like, woo, energy. Feels very positive. So it's not fearful. It's not like creating chaos. It seems uplifting.
Well, it would make sense that if there is a race that also maybe has some interest in the planet itself, maybe there's resource here, maybe there's, maybe they live in the center of the planet, who knows?
Well, I've had interactions with other entities, which I didn't used to talk about it much, but I always said one day I will, and now it seems like it's fine. So what happened for me right after the harmonic convergence that I thought was kind of funny, like, what are they doing? What is this hippie thing? Okay, well, never make fun of things. Anyway, long story short, next thing I know, and I have a very serious job. I'm a project manager at Citibank, and I'm doing, important stuff by day, like 50-hour weeks. But what happened is I got hired for a job I never interviewed for. And so it's like I'm in my dreams. So I fall asleep and I meet this tall, looks like a person, but a little tall, and basically asked me to select, an item from looked like a vegetable stand, like pick the best head of lettuce or whatever. So I did that, and like, good, you're on the team. Like, what? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because I was just picking like based on energy and everything, like when you're looking for plants and you can tell like which ones are doing well. Anyway, so then I get whooshed away into I'll keep it short, but basically there was this huge, it's kind of like a get together, a project meeting just to kick it off. And most of the attendees in the room were not really human there. And I was human in my dream body form. And I would go there every night and work a full 8 hours. I was working 2 jobs, 50 hours during the week for my regular job, and every night, like getting whisked up there, like, good heavens. So but it was important because it was a global human mind redesign project. And I was part of quality assurance. I was the one that would sort through, like, this is a good design. Like, I think humans would like this one. Becoming more telepathic, becoming more empathic. And then we got the crystal kids, the indigo kids. They all came in right after this. So to me, it's like, I'm just amazed, gobsmacked by it. And what I got, I made friends, on this project team in my dream body. These aliens, they know me, so I know that we've been doing this before. I know humans have done this before. This is normal for us when we get to this certain point in our evolutionary path, and we're clearing the hurdles. It's kind of like we're jumping, we're doing our best, we're doing great.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting. I mean, Cynthia and I discovered we may have had a shared job in this sort of thing, but I've had that same experience where I knew I was going to work at night, and it
Yes.
had to do with very similar things.
Yes.
And a very specific job in the transition of the energies of things now.
Yes.
And would wake up just exhausted, like, oh God, I worked all night,
Yes.
could I actually just sleep? But I came to have a really different view about this whole subject.
Right.
We think of aliens as little green men or something really scary and really different from ourselves.
Mhm.
But I realized it's really, if you think about, I have family in Sicily, and there was a point in time where I didn't know them. I didn't know what they look like. It was really, before the internet, seeing their faces, and man, I mean, they were alien to me. And they have a different culture. They eat different kinds of food. They speak a different language. They speak a different emotional language even. So why are people that live on another possible planet or even another plane, why are they so different than that? Why are they just not our family that lives in another place? And their culture is a little bit different, and maybe their skin's a little bit different, and maybe their language is different, but they're just our family from somewhere distant from us. And, the truth is, if we were, went back in time, well, actually this happened. So
Right.
when the Spaniards visited South America, they couldn't have been more alien
Right.
to those people, and they were aliens, and they might as well have been from another planet, because they were from a place that those people had never heard of, with technology that they had never dreamed of.
Right.
So to me, it's exactly like that. Maybe even a little more exotic, but still just our family from a little distance that we haven't met yet.
Yeah, and they're cool. The ones I worked with seem like they're very supportive and positive, even the ones that submitted bizarre design models that I didn't think would pass. They took it really well. And
Yeah.
so that says a lot, it means that we are cooperating at levels that we may not be conscious of. And I love your experience noticing that Dyson sphere umbrella that's just like moving around and gently deflecting you. That was the sweetest way. I
Yeah.
can't think of a better way. And then when you kept showing up, like, come on, and then they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I just want to know what it is. Like, I just want to ask a couple of questions here. And, and that was the thing. It didn't seem very nefarious, and
No.
makes you wonder, are those things attacked in a nefarious way? Why they might need to be protected, because it does seem like it's such a benefit. However, if there are beings or people out there who do have a vested interest in really depopulating the planet, they might not be so happy about that being protected. Anyway, it was just a really interesting experience. Let's put it that way.
I love it. I love it. I love our talks. This is, and I know you have to cut it short today, but this has been amazing, and I'm glad we recorded most of it. We missed a little bit at the beginning.
I know, me too. It's always so much fun to talk. And if you guys are out there listening and you love these conversations and you see yourself in it,
Yes.
message us, because I have a feeling there's so many more of us out there that really are highly intelligent, rational people who have regular lives, who've also had one of these experiences.
Oh, yes.
And you're wondering, did I make it up, or is this actually happening? The more of us that actually share, the more we know for sure that what we're experiencing is real, on at least one level, but maybe many, many levels.
Until that wonderful glass that you mentioned comes out. I forget what it's called. What was that called? The stuff that's illegal?
Dicyanine, I think is what it is called.
Yeah, interesting.
But if you go to that channel, the Mind Unveiled, you'll see it for sure. And I'll share it with you, Cynthia. It's a really interesting episode. And I mean, I'm so happy that exists on the planet. I mean, how amazing would that be?
I'd love people to see what I'm seeing. Like when I'm standing next to the guy that used to live here, it's like, he's here. Can you see him? I know you probably could, but it would be nice when we can all tune in and have that higher sense perception.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because, I've gotten to work with some people that really opened my eyes to what kinds of different perceptions are available.
Right.
And where maybe I might not be able to see it, but maybe I could hear it.
Yes. Or just have instant knowingness.
Yeah. Instant knowing, just have a full understanding. Right. Yes. So I think so many of us are experiencing it.
Right.
We just don't have the support to know how to utilize it or that it's actually real.
That's why we're sharing these conversations.
Right.
I think it's super special when two of us are talking because it just fills it in. It just makes it so rich. It's like the best kind of potluck meal.
Well, and you guys, I mean, it's really just us talking to each other about our weirdness. So it really is just an inside conversation. But how wonderful for me, Cynthia, to be able to share it with you.
Yes.
Because I know you're going to consider what I say.
Yes.
And have some feedback, have some actual, intelligent conversation about it. Of course, you don't have all the answers either, but you certainly know of some more things than I do. And you can help me understand. So if each of us could be that for somebody else, how amazing and how great that consciousness jump can be faster.
And it's much bigger than most people realize. Like they don't realize the effect they're having in their family and their community. You might think like, I'm not needed or I'm not making a difference. You are making a huge difference. And every bit of positivity that we can each embody with our unique subjective perspective, we are causal agents, and our causal agency comes from our hearts, just the sweetness, the kindness that we can share. Even if it doesn't seem like anything, that's the biggest gift of all.
Well, and before I knew that some of it was actually quite real, I used to appreciate, had a certain little collective of friends that we could just have the conversation about. And the conversation, like I said, real or not real, true or not true, didn't matter. It was the ideas.
Right.
And I would leave those conversations with such an expansion of idea that then the next few things I ran into, I'm like, oh, wow. Because I leveled up my brain, my availability of ideas, I could now understand more and more and more.
Yes.
So just have the conversations.
Yes.
And don't be so attached to whether or not it's actually real or anyone else can see it. But what about the idea of it? And does the idea serve you? If the idea serves me and it helps me to have a greater expansion, then yes, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Until there's another idea that serves me more. And then, that takes me to another level.
That's living. How good can it get? I love it.
How good can it get?
I believe in win-win-win for everybody.
Right.
I win, you win, we all win. And that's the true win. Nothing else is.
Well, I would say too, not to latch on to any one specific idea as 100% true so that you're arguing with someone.
Yeah, my favorite thing is that nothingness mind, empty mind, empty mind, empty mind. And then when you get really good at it, then even if you freak out or someone else is freaking out, just go empty mind, boom. And there's just instant calm, clarity, no belief, no thought.
There's a saying in Access Consciousness, they'll say, interesting point of view that you have that point of view, which I love because it allows you to let go of good, bad, right, or wrong, and just acknowledge that it's someone else's perspective or point of view.
And sometimes that's why they're shouting so loud, because they feel like they're not being heard. And exactly.
Interesting point of view that you have that point of view.
Right.
What I noticed with that was, first of all, it allowed me to let somebody have their point of view and me not have to have any opinion about it. It's your perspective, your point of view. But it also would let go of my own resistance. And eventually, maybe I actually really saw their point of view.
Yeah.
which expanded my mind. Super valuable. You know, it's not about convincing or not convincing or true or not true. Like I said, just if I could understand where you're coming from, I understand you better, and I understand maybe a whole genre of ideas better. So I find that super valuable just in general. And I think when it comes to this topic, these weird topics, weird woo-woo, just have the conversation
Yeah.
and let it be known that it's just a point of view, just a perspective,
Yeah.
just an idea.
I love it. Oh, I love you so much.
Ah,
Thank you
love
for
you so
sharing
much.
everything. I love the UFO story and your experiences with the plants, and as usual, priceless.
So much fun. All right. Well, we'll talk again soon, and we'll include you guys again soon. Big love for now.
Yeah.